yeah, go through the strategy analysis. One of the knowledge area will be helpful. But yeah, this session is for definitely for CBAP and CCB aspirants, anyone who is in the role of business analyst or someone who wants to move into a role of a strategy analyst kind of role. So for them, this will be beneficial.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, because I'm studying for CBAP at this point. I'm hoping to get either next month or in January, which I can't believe I'm saying.
Okay. I hope you can see my screen, right? Hi everyone, those who have joined so far, I say Muhammad Meherban is here, Sandra is definitely here, Tatiana is here. Hello everyone. Good morning, good evening. We'll start in a few minutes as the session schedule time is 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. IST. So let's wait for a few minutes, and by the time other participants can also join.
Yeah, hi Shashank, good evening. Am I audible?
Yes, Brijesh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, good, good.
All right.
You
So
can see my screen,
we'll start
right?
now. So Nazni, can we start the
Sure.
recording now?
This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, hi,
Hi,
good evening,
everyone.
everyone. This is Brajesh from Techcanvass, and I'll be hosting this session today. We'll start this session with a small introduction about Techcanvass. But before that, I would request everyone to keep your mic on mute and your cameras off. And we'll have a Q&A session in this webinar, so you can ask your all the questions there. And if you get any questions in between, so you can send your questions in the chat box, so they'll be taken in the Q&A session. So Techcanvass is an IT certification training organization for mid-level professionals, wherein we help out all the aspirants in cracking their certification exams in their first attempts. We are authorized training partner for IIBA Canada and ISQA Germany for all the business analyst and data analytics certification courses. We are also authorized at PMI for project management certification courses. So today we have Mr. Shashank Jain for this webinar. So a small introduction about Shashank as well. So Shashank is a senior consultant with 14 plus years of experience in IT industry and 10 plus years of experience in business analysis, product owner, Scrum Master, consulting and project management roles. Shashank holds a certified business analysis professional credentials, that is CBAP from IIBA. All right, so now I would request Shashank to begin the session from here. Thanks everyone and all the very best.
Thank you, Brajesh, for the introduction. That you gave for me. Hi, everyone. Hi from my side. I see quite many participants who have joined over here, and I'm good to start this session, which is on strategy analysis. In the meantime, can I just request all of you to just give a very brief introduction about yourself in terms of the experience that you have, and are you someone, and what kind of designation you have, the role which you play in your organization? I think that will help. Number of years of experience and the role that you play, and what brings you here to this presentation. You can type in this chat area.
My name is Sandra Sterling.
I'll request to.
Oh, did you want to call out people, or do you want to just volunteer?
No, you can just simply type in the chat. I'll not call out names one by one, just to get some idea about the audience, so that I know with whom I'm interacting, and I want to make sure that this is an interactive session where you guys are able to ask any question as well in between.
Okay, my name is Sandra Sterling. I am from Dallas, Texas, and I work for a furniture company in the States, and I'm actually a business analyst. So at this point,
Okay.
I've gone to AAC, CPOA, so I'm trying to round out the year with the CBAP, and I'm currently in a study group, which is why I gotta leave. But if I can get any perspective on the different knowledge areas, that'd be fantastic. So I'm just at this point trying to absorb all this material, because the BABIC is pretty encompassing. I did read version 2 and version 1, and now I'm finally deciding to plunge and take the test. So, it's gotten a lot bigger since I remember, and trying just to absorb all this material. I'm not going to memorize it all, but I can understand the different knowledge areas and, what's expected from you, to what is expected for you to understand and know. That would be very helpful when I take the exam.
Sure.
And I'm at the point where all I need is the professional development.
Sure. Thanks, Sandra. I'm seeing, yes, it's thanks for sharing that. I'm seeing other participants are also sharing their experience. People are working as an analyst kind of role. So yeah, one thing I would like to bring here is, like, anyone who's playing the role of or doing the activities which are related to business analysis, is someone who can be called as a business analyst. You need not to have the exact designation of business analyst itself. People who play the role of process analyst are also doing some work from the business analysis. Even people who are doing some development, even doing some testing also are also doing some business analysis work. So far I see the folks who have shared their background. I see most of you are from the business analysis background. So thanks for that. And I'll start with this session. And this is focused on strategy analysis. And also this is linked with entire guidelines that come from IIBA Canada, and this entire session will be based on the guidelines that are there in Babok version 3. This is today's agenda. We will talk about what is strategy, what is the importance of strategy analysis as well in even IT and non-IT projects, because you can be business analysts who are working in core IT companies, as well as you can be someone who are also belonging to some non-tech related organizations. But yeah, the strategy analysis work irrespective of organization being IT organization or non-IT organization. You will also see on the agenda, the third point over here is we will understand what are the inputs, what are the outputs, and what are the tasks, techniques, and stakeholders involved into strategy analysis. So I'll give you background that how this agenda is being set, on which guidelines. Even I'll also talk about the techniques that you can use here. In fact, also we'll go through the type of questions which may come here over here. So one thing is here, I would like to divide here is like, I see that people who are preparing for CBAP and CCBA certifications, as well as there would be folks who have joined this session who would like to understand what exactly strategy analysis is. So this session is focused on both these areas so that you can prepare as well for your examination, as well as one who wants to learn about this can also do that. So further background about this Babok version 3, as you may have heard, I was talking that I'll be talking based on what guidelines which are there in Babok version 3. So this is like a guide, which is a body of knowledge in terms of business analysis. And the governing body is IIBA Canada. And those who want to get certified can go for the examinations like CBAP, CCBA, and even ECBA as well. And there are the requirements in terms of the work experience. Now, coming to this agenda, the session is strategy analysis, and those who may have some idea about Babok. So basically, this is one of the knowledge area named as strategy analysis. And this framework, which I have talking is Babok version 3, has a set structure across all of the knowledge areas. So basically, there are 6 knowledge areas, or for those who feel that this knowledge area is some complex term. So basically, these are some 6 activities which are being worked by the business analyst. So strategy analysis is one of them. There are other knowledge areas as well, which BAs perform. So that is business analysis, planning and monitoring. Then there is elicitation and collaboration. Then related to requirement, there is requirement lifecycle management. How to write the requirement, that is more focused on how part, which is requirement analysis and design definition. And then one of another knowledge area is solution evaluation. And one which we are going through today is strategy analysis, which is one of that. So total 6 knowledge areas are there, but we will come back to this agenda and we'll try to understand what exactly strategy analysis is. We will also go through some of the live examples so that we connect here what exactly strategy means, what is the role of a business analyst or a strategy analyst in terms of designing a strategy for any enterprise. So what exactly is a strategy analysis before I talk about this? So every organization or any enterprise, if you think about them, okay? So let me take an example. Let me take an example of some hospital. Okay, hospital is an enterprise. Every enterprise already have some capabilities in place, and every organization also look forward to improve their processes, bring more value to their customers or say stakeholders. And that's why a strategy analyst helps these enterprise in devising these strategies. Simplifying further, So basically, every hospital, if we take an example of hospital, if you have to look at what is their current state, what are the activities which are happening in hospital at the moment, which is like you are analyzing what is its current state. You try to understand what are the flaws in the existing processes, if they are missing some technology, if they are missing some infrastructure. So you see here, strategy is not only suggesting some IT solutions. Strategy is looking at the entire organization holistically, looking at their current state. Then, as a business analyst, you will also collaborate with the key stakeholders who are there in that organization. So, in this example, with that hospital, so of course, there will be some key stakeholders, someone who may be sponsor over there in that hospital. There will be physicians who are working. There may be different departments which are there in that hospital, like in different streams, someone from gastroenterology, someone from cardiology. Then they will have many lab reports there would be happening. There may be some radiology equipments as well. So you see here, look at this hospital as an enterprise. And for this enterprise, you as a business analyst have been requested by this hospital to devise a strategy. So here you see you are more involved in work which is like strategy analysis work. And of course, most of us who are the BAs here may have been involved more into the works which are typically there in the organizations, like writing the requirements, doing the requirement gathering sessions, preparing the functional specs, writing the user stories, being part of the testing, and so on. But you see here, this one which we are doing strategy analysis, also one of the key activity which business analysts do. Okay, so further explaining in the same example. So the hospital, there may be some people, the key people or some decision makers in that hospital who would have looked at what is the current state. And of course, they wanted some expert who can help them in deciding what should be the future state for their hospital. Why they want a future state? So that they can serve better to their stakeholders. Who their stakeholders may be? They may be some patients who are visiting the hospital mostly. There may be some physicians as well who are working at this hospital. There may be some external suppliers and vendors as well who are the key stakeholders there. So this hospital would want an expert who can devise the strategy for them and who can play that role. So ideally, a business analyst who specializes in strategy analysis, or someone, if I connect back to the certification point of view or this framework, should be able to do this strategy. Anyone have any question? I saw someone spoke, or was it like by just mistake? Maybe others who are not speaking can go on mute. All right. So that is how strategy part comes here. Now, when we look at the business analyst role here in terms of strategy analysis, in terms of other knowledge areas, or I would say activities, those who are not very much familiar with Babok version 3. So strategy analysis, what you do here, you try to understand what are the needs of an enterprise. You also define that what is the exact solution scope is there. Once you have done this part, then you will move into next stages, which is like doing the requirement analysis and design definition, which will be like the next works which you will be doing once you have worked all of the activities which are there in the strategy analysis. Once a solution is built, then even you can do the solution evaluation as well. So in terms of business analysis value spectrum, you can see here, it starts with the strategy analysis first. In any organization, would like a business analyst to understand the strategy part, do the assessment in terms of current state, define what can be the future state. There will be a lot of things as well which happens here, so I'll talk about them subsequently. In case any question you may have, general question in case, I would say, you can put that on the chat and I can look at it. I think not at the moment. So let's see here what all activities as a strategy analyst or a business analyst you would be doing. So connecting back to this example of a hospital who want some changes in their current processes, right? Because they see that the processes are not working well. The reviews from the patients are not coming well. There may be some external factors, some requirements from the certification point saying the tools which are currently used in the hospital have to be HIPAA compliant, right? There are many regulatory requirements as well, which any enterprise has to go through. So hospital being expert in their in the medical science, right? But they want some strategy analyst to help in doing these activities, which you see here. So here you will be understanding business need, doing the current state assessment. You will also define what will be the future state for them. And when you are doing that, there is another key element which is mentioned there, which is also one of the tasks here is assessing the risks. Because every organization may have some risk, which can be some internal risks, some external risk as well. So there are many techniques which can be applied here as well. And once you do that, you can then, based on understanding current state, future state, understanding what are the risks and uncertainties within an organization, then you, as a business analyst, can recommend multiple strategies, which you see here like many options. Then it's up to the organization and from the sponsor point of view, which one they would like to go with. So your role as a business analyst is to recommend various options to the key stakeholders, and then they will decide which one they have to choose on, right? So that's like choosing what is the design or solution option is there. Once that is done, then your next phase as a business analyst will start. Like you will be doing your business analysis, planning and monitoring work. You may have to do elicitation and collaboration, which is like collaborating with the key stakeholders from the hospital, trying to understand and further elaborate the business needs. Then you will get into a phase where you will write the requirements, where your documents can be in the form of textual form, metrics, or some models. You will also be part of managing that requirement in terms of tracing the requirement well, prioritizing the requirement. So you see here, post strategy analysis, you will move into that development or implementation kind of phase, which is typically happen in any IT organization. For non-IT organization as well, who wants to have a strategy. For example, I take another example now. So let's think about some factory which produces some goods which are there, which can be some electronics item. Okay, so a factory is producing that, and as a strategy analyst, you went there to do the strategy analysis for that factory. So you see here, you will do the current state assessment for them. You will try to find out with the key stakeholders that what are their business needs and where they want to move. You will understand what can be risks with that factory, and then you will suggest some strategies. Maybe you will give some options like in your factory, the processes are not efficient. There is a lot of waste is happening in the factory processes. There are some processes have to be changed. In fact, you may recommend that there is a need for some more training so that the workers who are working in the organization work in the right way. So you see here, you as a business analyst recommended many change strategies, and then whichever are like approved from the key sponsors will be taken forward. So here you see on the slide that 4 tasks are mentioned. So here you do the current state analysis, you do the future state analysis, and then you devise that strategy for them. So you see here in that in this Babok version 3 as well, for this knowledge area, these are the 4 tasks, which is analyze current state, define future state, then there is assess risk as well, and then there is define change strategy. So we'll understand each of these tasks. So let's first understand analyze the current state. Why there is a need to analyze the current state. So we'll connect back again with the hospital exam and one of the electronics factory example. So purpose, why there is a need to analyze current state? Because as a strategy analyst, you first want to understand why that hospital wants some change. So you need to find those reasons about why. To do this work, you can apply some techniques as well, which can be some root cause analysis. Why an enterprise wants to have some change. So it could be the hospital is seeing that the competition is growing, or they may find that patients are having some negative feedback about the hospital, or maybe they are seeing that the processes which are there are not much effective. The physicians and doctors and nurses are not working over in this enterprise. So you see here, you try to assess those reasons why enterprise needs some change. So the sponsor from the enterprise from hospital would have thought that we need to bring some new processes, we need to bring some IT systems, we need to streamline our processes. So you see here, as a BA, you are analyzing the current state first. You also understand what will be the direct or indirect effect which will come to the organization, because when you bring some change in the organization, it will have some impact on the organization itself. Like if you are bringing some new process in any organization, what will happen? The staff who is working over there had to upskill themselves. Maybe they need to train on new processes. So you see here, you try to understand what can be the direct or indirect effect. And there can be many such examples as well, which can affect that organization for the people who are working there, for the systems which are in place there, even how the interaction they have with their third party or some suppliers or vendors. So you see here, that's from the purpose point of view. And you have to understand the changes can affect the stakeholders, it can affect the processes, the technologies which are being, and even policies as well will be affected. So it's also said that it's not like always you will do the strategy analysis for the entire organization. You can even do strategy analysis even for a smaller component of solution as well. Why? Because even a small component of a solution as well will have a current state. It may have some problems in it. That's why it will be required to get to a future state. While you do that, you may be assessing some risks, and then you will be recommending some options that how you can improve a particular solution. So you see here, it can be strategy analysis can be done for entire enterprise, holistical view you will have for the enterprise. Even you can do the smaller components of the solution as well. And in between, you can even do it for some departments which are there, even on some processes which are there. So that's how you see here. This picture, for some of you who have been aware about Web version 3, is and maybe finding it somewhat readable, but for those who are new to this entire framework, this actually tells a very organized way of performing any task. So you see here, this is a summarized picture of this strategy analysis knowledge area. In the central section, you see the key tasks which are there, which I talked, like the 4 tasks which are there. And there is a thing which is like, for performing any activity, you need some inputs. With those inputs only, then you can perform that task, and then you can get some output. For example, if I say you have to analyze the current state, I simply say, go to the hospital and start doing analysis of current state. You will say, how I have to do that? You will need something, right, to start with. So what all you will need? So you will need to know what is the requirements from the key stakeholder, why they want to move to or why they want to bring some change into their organization. You have to understand what are the influences maybe there. So you see here, this picture is telling these are the key tasks. There are some inputs required and some outputs that come out of when you perform those tasks. So for example, the 6.1, for some, you will be saying what is exactly 6.1. So basically, the chapter number is 6 in Web version 3 for this knowledge area. That's why it's numbered as 6.1 and so on. And you can see the relative outputs as well, like 6.1. The output when you perform and analyze current state, you will come up with current state description. You will come up with business requirements as well. So you see here, with the help of the needs itself, the problems or the opportunities which that hospital is seeing, you perform a current state analysis, and then you come up with a solid business requirement as well as the current state description. For the second task, you see here, define future state 6.2. You see here the outputs here are 2. One is business objectives as well as the future state description, and one more is there is potential value. Why? Because you are assessing what is the potential value you are going to get when you move from current state to a future state for an organization. Because right now it's all an analysis. You analyze current state, you even define future state. Of course, when you define future state, you are going to bring some new processes, some new solutions, and it will return some potential value, right? It will be beneficial for the enterprise. And that's why you are doing the definition of future state. So which means when you perform this defined future state, you will also get to know the potential value that an enterprise will get. So you see here, this is how one should read this input-output diagrams which are there. And then you see when you assess the risk, you will come up with risk analysis result. We will see what are the different risks which are faced by any enterprise. And from then the last stages or the last activity which you do is you define those change strategies. You define those options. So basically you come up with change strategy, like how you move from one point A to point B. That will be your change strategy. And the solution scope is also important for the business analyst so that you know what exactly has to be done. Because in the hospital, there may be a lot of processes which can be changed. But as a business analyst, you have to set the boundary that the solution which you are recommending will cover these many things. So when you define that change strategy, you come up with the change strategy and the solution scope. So how to perform the current state analysis. So there are some key elements that you have to understand. You first have to understand what is the business need. You also have to understand who are the people working there. So that's why it says understanding organization, structure, and culture. You have to understand what are their current capabilities, maybe, or the processes. Maybe they may be inefficient, but you have to do that assessment. You have to understand if there are any technology or infrastructure being used in the organization. What are the existing policies? What are existing business architecture? What are the internal assets which are there? In fact, you have to understand there may be some external influences as well. So what can be external influences? It can be some regulatory requirement. The external influence for any enterprise will be something which is outside the enterprise but affects the organization's way of working. So it can be influenced by some political reasons. It can be like influenced by how is the environmental needs are there and so on. So you see here these many things you analyze when you do the current state assessment. Many techniques are there. Once you go into the above version 3, get trained, you will understand how each of the technique works. So you see here, it's not just theoretical thing. It tells you what are the ways to perform that. And you see here such a long list of many techniques which are relevant here. So you see here, it's quite a long list. I'll not read it, but yeah, some of them I like to talk upon is like, you have to understand what is the business capability. So you will do business capability analysis. You have to understand who are the people working there. So you will be doing organizational modeling. You have to understand what are the strengths, weakness, opportunity, and threats for an organization. So you will be doing SWOT analysis. You will be talking to a lot of stakeholders. So you may be conducting some workshops as well, so as to understand what are their business needs. You may be, in fact, doing interviews. You may be doing workshops as well. You can even do some lot of modeling as well as a business analyst, which means drawing the process diagrams, drawing the as-is processes, drawing the to-be process, which will be in the future state. You for conducting these sessions for elicitation, you conduct focus groups as well when you want to talk about specific process. If I take back that example of hospital, if you want to understand how exactly the billing process work in that hospital, so you may conduct a focus group technique as well. So you see here, these many techniques are relevant here. Then there are key stakeholders who you have to do the discussions in terms of getting the requirements. So they are stakeholders. They will be some domain SMEs. So in every enterprise, in every organization, there will be some experts who are expert in the domain. So in case of hospital, who can be the domain subject expert, matter experts? It can be someone who are the physicians there. It can be someone who are the nurses over there. It can be someone who works at the radiology lab. So you see here, you have, as a business analyst, you may be talking or collaborating with all these stakeholders. And when it comes to implementation, then you will see, you will be when you get into the development phase, then your other stakeholders who will be relevant will be PMs, sponsors, supplier, tester. And the output that you get here is current state description and the business requirements. So that was the first step. Then that was like assessment of the current state. You then define the future state, which is like you understood what are the gaps, you understood what are the problems which are being faced by the organization or the enterprise. So you determine what are the set of necessary conditions to meet the business need. So for example, the hospital says that currently we don't have any system in which we can capture that on a day-to-day basis how many patients come to our hospital. So you see here, you understood pain point, then you are defining a future state. So you recommend that why don't you have some EMR solution in which you can capture the patient's information. So you see here, and there can be many such conditions to meet the business need. So that's the purpose of defining the future state. You have to gain the consensus from the stakeholders. You have to assess if it's really going to help the organization to satisfy the business need. So these all things you define in future state. Here you see a complex picture over here, but just break it down into smaller pieces. And you see here the task which we are talking now is define future state. To define the future state, you will need one output, that is business requirements. And do you recall from where you got the business requirements? It came when you worked on assessment of current state. The output there was current state description as well as the business requirements. So you see here how it is interlinked. All of the tasks which are there in each of the knowledge areas may have some correlation, or maybe using some input, which is maybe using some output which is coming from another task. So you see here, while you define the future state, you will come up with business objectives, you will come up with future state description and the potential value. Further, you see below, a lot of small boxes are there, some numbers are there, and so on. So you see here, one thing we will observe, 4.1, 7 point something, 6 point something, and so on, and some stuff is written over there. So basically, they are the tasks in other knowledge areas. So if it is like chapter number 6 is what we are doing, or from the backup point of view is strategy analysis. Then from 4.5, which is basically chapter number 4, and that is elicitation and collaboration. So you see here some future state description. You see here, once you come up with future state description, it will help you in performing elicitation and collaboration, and even managing the stakeholder collaboration, which is one of the tasks in elicitation and collaboration. Even you will see when you are working on requirements, you are writing the requirements. That is one of another knowledge area, that is requirement analysis, design, and definition. The task over there, where this future state description will be helpful, will be while you are validating the requirements, while you are defining the design options, while you are analyzing the potential value of the constructed solution as well, you can refer back to future state description. In fact, while you are doing the solution evaluation, so consider that for this hospital, you have recommended an EMR solution. The IT organization has built an EMR solution as well. And now what happens next? As a PA, then you will analyze how this EMR system is working. Is it really meeting the business needs or not? Is it really meeting all the requirements which were given by the stakeholders? So you see here, with this output, it can be useful in many other inputs from other knowledge areas. So in this way, actually, these diagrams are ready. So the key elements while you define the future state is you define what are the business goals and objectives. You also define what is the scope of solutions scope. You also understand what are the various constraints which can be there. You again have to understand organization structure and culture, because the same people are going to use the solution, right? The physicians will remain same, the doctors may remain same, the X-ray lab will remain same. But they will be using some new processes, some solutions, some new future state. That's why this organizational structure and culture assessment is important. Capabilities and processes you will define. You will decide that what will be the new technology infrastructure which will be there in the enterprise. You will also understand what are the policies which will be there, and business architecture. In fact, you have to understand what are the internal assets will be affected, what kind of assumptions you need to take place, and potential value that you will get once when you are defining the future state. There are many techniques again here, quite a long list, but quite many. I can talk about them, like you have to work on the business model canvas. So what is business model canvas? So in this technique, you try to assess holistically how a business works, what are the key partnerships are happening, what is the business model, what is the financial state of the any enterprise, what are the values which you can get out of it. So you see here, as a BA, you work on one of this technique. You have to work on a lot of functional decomposition. What is functional decomposition? It's like breaking down a bigger requirement into smaller requirements, right? When you break down the business requirement into smaller use cases, you can do functional decomposition. And many techniques are from elicitation, because you have to collaborate a lot with the key stakeholders. You may even have to do vendor assessment. Why? Because you may be using some tools. So, as a for example, you are a business analyst from the IT organization who builds this EMR solution. Okay, there may be some pieces in the CMR solution which you may be buying from some third party, because your organization feel that building that in-house may not be beneficial, may not bring that value. So you have to do a lot of vendor assessment, like trying to find out which are various providers of those solutions. So that is how this technique is relevant. There are key stakeholders you can consult with to understand or confirm your future state understanding. They will be domain SME, customers, end user, implementation SME, operational support guys, project manager you have to keep in loop so that they can work on the planning of the project, regulator in case if there are any regulatory requirements, testers as well. And the output that you get here is business objectives, future state description, and the potential value. So, and then the next task is assess requirements. Meanwhile, if there are any questions by anyone, I would like to check the chat as well. If anyone has any question. All right, cool. So yeah, just recently some questions came, right? So I'll quickly talk upon them as well, because there are two more tasks which are there. So I'm reading that question. I'll come back once if it is required. I'll take them during the Q&A session. So Tom has asked, does this imply that business requirement precede business objectives? Okay, I talk about that. Khushbu has asked, can you explain a little more on business capability analysis technique? Sure. And one more question came on concept modeling. Can you give us more detail? Sure, I'll take these all during our Q&A session. I have read them. All right, I'll go back to assess risk, which is the third thing which as a BA you have to do. And that is assessment of the risk. You have to understand what are the internal factors which may affect an organization. What are the external forces which are there? Because all the organizations are affected by that. Internal forces, which can be any internal organization change which may be happening. Assume in the hospital itself, some physicians are moving out, some new ones are coming in, some existing policies are there which are getting affected. So you see here internal changes which are happening, or internal forces which affect the enterprise. And you see here, if this is happening, then transition from current state to future state would be affected. Then external factors, which can be any political reason, environmental reason, there can be some social factors, there can be some external technology factor which may be affecting, there can be some legal factor as well as some economic factors as well which may affect or cause some risk. So as a BA, you have to understand what can be the consequences of the risk. You have to understand what are the impact of those risks, how likely a risk can happen, and what is the potential time frame when the risk might occur. And that can even help you while you are defining the change strategy, which is the fourth task here, right? So that can be used to identify a change strategy. So from input-output diagram point of view, you will need business objectives, which is the output from the defined future state. From analyzing the current state, you got the business objective. So coming to one of the questions which I got, that what comes first? So first comes the business requirements, and based on the business requirements, when you have defined the future state, you will also come up with clear business goals, right? What are the objectives there? So business requirement comes first, then you get to the business objectives. So that's one of the question over here, which I would like to answer in that way. So here, coming back to this task, which is assess risk. So you get the risk analysis results here. So while you are doing the assessment of risk, you have to understand what can be the unknowns, which are like unknowns, and how you can get to the unknowns. You can take some expert judgment from the domain SMEs You may do some research that what kind of unknown risks may happen. You have to understand what are the constraints, assumptions, and dependency. You also have to assess what can be the negative impact to the value because of these risks. You have to understand what is the organization's risk tolerance, whether they want to seek the risk, whether they want to avoid the risk, or are they neutral about the risk, and then you can make the recommendations. Many techniques are there here, which are like brainstorming can be used, business case, decision analysis, document analysis, financial analysis is also something you need to know. Interviews you can perform to talk to the key people over there, and mind mapping as well, risk analysis and management, because it's more about how to manage the risk. So I will want to like to talk about on this one. Uh, Risk analysis and management, right? So risk analysis and management, in this one you have to identify what are the risks. You can even create a risk register, give the right attributes to the risk, which can be who is the owner of the risk, who is going to resolve it, what kind of impact it may have on the business. So that is risk analysis and management. You have to do root cause analysis, survey or question, and workshops as well. So these are the relevant techniques over here. Then the key stakeholders who can be consulted for assessing the risk are domain SMEs in case of knowing the unknowns, implementation SME in terms of any constraints from the solution point of view, operational support people because they are going to support the solution later on. So yeah, you have to take their inputs as well. PM for any project related or the schedule point of view, sponsor, supplier, and testers as well. And what you get once you have done that is risk analysis results. So that's the third task. And finally, you will then define the change strategy. So what's the purpose of defining the change strategy? So from purpose point of view or objective point of view is develop and assess the alternative approaches to the change and then select the recommended approach. So you have to find out what are the various options. So that are like your alternative approaches to the changes and then select the recommended approach. So basically, you describe the nature of the change in terms of what is the context. You also identify what are the alternative strategies, like if option A cannot be taken, what are the option B, option C, and so on. In fact, you also need to work on the justification for the recommended change strategy because you have to connect it back with the business objectives and the requirement flow there. So resources which are required to move to the desired future state, and how the enterprise will realize the value after solution delivery. Who are the key stakeholders involved there? You have to understand the work on the transition states as well. So looking at the diagram over here, the input-output diagram. So that's like this, where you will need some inputs. And you see here, the inputs are from some other knowledge areas as well. Like one of them is from elicitation and collaboration. So it's not like you have to take all these knowledge areas in isolation. To define the change strategy, obviously, when you were doing the analysis of current state, when you were defining the future state, actually that time also you were doing a lot of stakeholder engagement. So you see here different knowledge areas you can apply multiple knowledge areas at the same time, the task from those knowledge areas at the same time. And even in this one, while you are defining the change strategy, you have to look at stakeholder engagement approach, which is trying to understand what kind of availability is there for the stakeholder, what kind of engagement approach you need to take with them, what will be your method of communication, whether they will be like virtual meetings or will it be like in-person meetings. So that is what you can take the guidelines from your stakeholder engagement approach. And while you are defining the change strategy, you have to take the outputs from the previous three tasks. From analysis of current state, you got the current state description. While you were working on defined future state, you got the future state description. In fact, when you assess the risk, you got the risk analysis result. So taking the combination and taking all these four inputs, then you can work on definition of the change strategy. And the outputs which you get here are change strategy as well as the solution scope, because you get the complete boundary, and based on that actually you are going to write your requirements, right? Once you have a clear solution scope, then you can write your requirements, and then you can perform many other tasks which are related to requirement, as you see here. 7.13456, which is from requirement analysis and design definition. 5.345 is from requirement lifecycle management, because once you have a clear scope, then you can prioritize the requirement. You can assess any changes which may happen even on this defined solution scope. In fact, you have to get the approval as well from your key stakeholder. In fact, while you are doing the solution evaluation as well, once the solution is built, you can look at the solution scope and check back and that will be helpful in performing many tasks in that knowledge area, which is 8.1234, and even pretty much all of the tasks which are there in solution evaluation. Change strategy, with the help of change strategy, that will also be useful in many other tasks in the other knowledge areas. So what I want you do here, you define the solution boundary, you define the solution, you have to do a lot of gap analysis as well, which is to understand what is missing here, and that will help you in defining the change strategy and the solution scope. You also have to understand how ready the enterprise is in terms of use this new solution, right? Because you have to understand if they have the real capability, the stakeholders who are working there, are they having the right perception about the new solution? Are they ready to use the new solution? So that is what all you do in enterprise readiness. Are they having right skill? Are they having right infrastructure? So all those things you do in enterprise readiness assessment. You also work on change strategy, transition states, and the release planning as well. There are many techniques that will be relevant here as well: balanced scorecard, benchmarking, market analysis, brainstorming, decision analysis, document analysis. So quite many techniques are here as well. So when you go in detail for each of these sessions, of course, then because each of these techniques is quite extensive and very helpful, and each of the techniques have its own strengths and weaknesses as well. So as a PA, you should be someone who would be able to find out which are the best suited in a situation. And in fact, from the exam point of view as well, they will give you those scenario kind of questions where you have to find out what is the best technique in a kind of situation. And that kind of questions they do ask in the examination. Who are the stakeholders who are relevant here? So they are customer, domain SME, end user, implementation SME, operational support guys, project manager, regulator, sponsor, supplier, and tester. And what you get here is change strategy and solution scope. So what all we learned in today's session is how to move from current state to future state. You have to do the assessment of current state. You have to understand what is the future state. You have to assess the risk as well. And then you have to find out what is the best way or the most effective way to move from current state to future state. We talked, or I would say, discussed few of the techniques. Of course, there are quite many. And we also talked about each of the element, which is like the activities that you have to do in each of the tasks, right? How to analyze current state, how to define future state. While you are doing the assessment of risk, what all elements you need to look at. You need to look at internal factors, you need to look at external factors. While you are defining the change strategy, you have to see what is the enterprise readiness. You have to look at both current state and future state, and what can be the ways with which change strategy can be defined. Then we also looked at ongoing activities, which is like while you are doing the strategy analysis, you will use some other tasks from other knowledge areas as well, like a lot of elicitation and collaboration will be doing it that. And you see here it aligned with other strategies as well. So you see here, so those who are quite familiar with the BABOK, they can relate well. However, those who are aspiring for it, so the recommendation is like preparing for BABOK version 3, and then you will see this list actually helps in understanding. So I'm not saying just memorize all of it, how many are there, and that will not help much. But yeah, here you can see the scope again, right? While you are doing the first task, analysis of current state, there are 2 inputs required. There are 8 elements. There are 2 outputs which you get. And there are 26 relevant techniques here. Number of stakeholders are 10 here. So in the same way, for each of the tasks, there are a number of inputs which you can understand from the input-output diagram, as well as when you go through exactly in detail in the BABOK as well. Number of elements is like the ways or the activities that you perform here. So there are 11 such points here while you define future state. The outputs you get is 3. Number of techniques relevant are 23, and so on and Number of stakeholders who will be involved here will be 10, and in the same way for others as well. So that's like from the exam point of view. And now I'll take the question and answers. All right. So starting with Tom's question, does that imply that business requirement precede business objective? And even he had a follow-up question, how can you scope business requirements if you don't have business objectives? All right. So I'll try to explain from exact step by step. The first task while you do strategy analysis is assessment of current state. You directly went to an enterprise as a business analyst, and what you do there, you try to understand what are their needs, what are the problems which are being faced. So that exactly in terms of web is called as business requirements, which is having the problems and needs. Once you do the definition of future state, then you define the objectives. You try to understand, because you have to do the assessment. Everything what your stakeholders may have told, obviously they told from the business point of view that we find this process is inefficient. Okay, that's your business requirement. Then they say we don't have patient scheduling option. Another business requirement. Two business requirements are there. But when you define this future state, then you actually refine those business requirements and come up the exact business objectives. Why they want a patient scheduling system? So the objective here is that they want to have a proper audit, proper notification for the relative patient, relative physicians, and so on. So that's how first business requirement, and then you get to the business objectives. So that's Tom's question. Then another question was from Reshma. Can you suggest any study strategy to clear ECBA certification? It's always WebUp version 3 only. And once you go through this and go through the training, you should be able to clear the ECBA certification. So definitely strategy-wise, it's always preferable to go through the education endorsed training providers and do the proper studies with them. Definitely there is, when you go through these training sessions, you get to the videos, you get to know exact framework, and that helps in clearing the ECBA certification. Next question is from Khushbu. Can you explain a little more with an example on business capability analysis technique? All right. So in business capability analysis technique, one of the technique from backup version 3, here you have to actually look at business in the holistical point of view. Look at what are the business capabilities in terms of what is their financial model, what are the key people who are working there, what are their roles and responsibilities, what are the external factors which impact. So how would you even visualize it, right? That is what you're thinking, right? That how exactly this will look like. So maybe you can create some slide, you can create some document which tells about the existing business capabilities, which can be what are the processes which are being faced there. You can do a combination of SWOT analysis over as well, that what are the strengths of the business there. So that's Krishna's question. Then Fahad's question is on concept modeling. Sure. So concept modeling, as the name say, you may think like it is some diagram, but actually concept modeling is more on the key terms, right? And it's more talking about the noun form and the verb form when you go through the webhook or the training totally. So in the concept modeling, every business has some key terms over there. So if I talk about some healthcare domain, they may have some key terms which are used in their business. So in the concept modeling, you try to document what all are the such noun which are used there. So you will say the various nouns which are used there, and you can create a kind of document in which you document all these and you share with your key stakeholders so that everyone is having a clear understanding about a business. So maybe in the noun forms, you can write down, okay, these are the various departments. Gastrology is there, then radiology is there, then other noun forms are like a medical store over there. You see here different concept modeling, noun forms are there. Then different actions happen there, right, which are the verb form. So within the gastroenterology, they may say we do a surgery. So noun verb form. So you see here, the point here is to help your key stakeholders, which can be from your implementation team, which can be even someone from the hospital itself, And with this document, using this technique, you have a very clear understanding about the key terms which are used over there and what is the relation between them. When you have the noun form and the verb form, you connect that within this department, these all actions happen. And then on top of it, then you start further your elicitation and like doing the requirement detailing. And then that this concept modeling can help you in building your next requirements, writing the detailed business rules. It can help you further with any data flow diagrams or activity flow diagrams. I hope, yeah, I answered the questions. I'll ask Brijesh as well to explain on this slide as well. And one of the questions which came from Anand. Brijesh, you there?
Yes, Ashank. Hi.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is about our upcoming batch on CCB and CBAP, which is going to start from 11th of December. All right. So if you have any questions or if you want to ask anything about this batch, you can always reach out to us. We have given our contacts here in the slide. You can check. And yeah, so if you have anything, so please feel free to call us on the given contacts.
So Anand, I hope this answered your question. Cool.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Any other question anyone may have?
Yeah, if you have any questions, you can ask right now, or if you feel like you can write in the chat box as well.
Yeah.
Can you please share the details of Techcanvass? The previous slide, I believe I'm taking a note of it.
Sure,
Thank
sure.
you.
Yes, it's there. Yep.
All right, so I'll
Okay.
explain you a bit about our batch. So our batches are completely live interactive, which we conduct over the weekends. So these classes are conducted uh, on Saturdays and Sundays from 7:30 to 10 o'clock. And this 11th December batch is our evening batch, India time, IST 7:30 p.m. To 10 p.m., which would go for 7 weekends. And what you get in this training is that you need this 35 hours PDO certificate, so that will be awarded to you after this training. And in this training, you'll be having access to a learning portal, which will provide you all the study contents. Along with that, you'll be having access to our test simulator, a question bank, wherein you're getting more than 1,000 questions to practice with 4 full-length mock tests. So if you have any other questions related to this batch, you can always reach out to us on this given contacts. All right. Yes, Ashank, over to you.
All right. I think, yeah, that's all. If anyone has any other question with regards to, like, I know just few minutes left, but yeah, any quick question anyone may have. I think no other question as of now. So definitely any question that's related to the batch details or certification details, you can contact with to Brijesh and info, and the details are here.
Yeah, Sashank, I guess we are good now. So thanks,
Yes, yeah.
everyone. Thank you. Thanks, Sashank.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good day and a good weekend, everyone. Bye-bye.